I think both of you alluded to an issue on my next question. Jeff, you mentioned it as like with this whipsaw issue, and then Javier is about the kind of communications with the employees. And I think that's been hard from the employer's perspective because, well, I mean, going back to the beginning of the pandemic, nobody knew how this was going to play out and what this looked like for the industry, what it looked like, how long it was going to last. And we've gotten some clarity, but then, and then it seems like once we have that clarity, things change again. And here in California and Los Angeles particularly, we've had that issue where it looked like we're going to reopen for a bit and had to close back down. And now it's like no clear certainty of when it's going to fully reopen. So we're operating in kind of this limbo right now. And what what are the best practices in communicating with the employees? And Jeff, I think you kind of alluded to it, that it's kind of move slowly, be conservative about it, don't get everybody's expectations too high. But with that said, you've got to maintain some morale and make sure that everybody working for you too just doesn't lose all hope and goes to some other industry, because all you hear in the news is the industry is getting beat up left and right. And so, how do you guys take all these points and kind of communicate, and what do you communicate to your employees at this point? And I'll throw that out to Javier first, start with him, and
sure,
back to Jeff.
So what we created is a document that we call it's red, yellow, blue, and green. And so we have stages of where we're at. So it ties to the state. So for example, when we're in stage, right now we're in stage blue, we're not open 100%. And that's how we communicate to the company. So everybody knows what stage we're in. And that way it's not guessing. So we're not, like, green is 100% back to everything open, and we're not there yet. So we're back in blue. So we can slide on the scale, and that's how we communicate. So red is obviously the worst case scenario, will happen in March, and then along the scale, and then on that scale, it tells you where you're at as far as where we're at, what we're doing, and then that way we can move up and down the scale, because say this happened again in November, or something in flu season happens again, we can tell our employees we're back to stage red or yellow or blue or green. We were in green for maybe a week or two, and we got shut down again, right? So we branded it that way. That way we communicate that way, and not rely on the state. The state had stage 1 to 4, but what does that mean for employees? So we use that system, and we create that system in the beginning to have some kind of communication tool. And the second thing we're doing, obviously, we're communicating frequently through a newsletter and through all the kind of formal communications that we all email, those kind of things. But I've been making videos with the staff and team. So I go out once a week and make a video, an impromptu video that's not scripted, and I interview store managers or people in the field and ask them about our procedures, what they think and how they feel, how they operate. So it humanizes the communication a little more than just getting memos, because it was getting to the point where you memo, emails, newsletters, it's almost too much, overwhelming. And so I felt that if I was in the field with the team and I could communicate, and the videos are getting higher responses than anything else we've done. So between the traditional mediums, the red, yellow, green, red, yellow, blue, green, and myself, that's how we communicate with the teams in the field.
Nice, I like that. Jeff, what have you guys been doing?
Well, we have a smaller company than Javier, so our approach, in some ways is similar and in some ways is different. From the outset and early on in the crisis, I made it a point to be in every restaurant at least once a week, every week, and that probably went on for obviously all of March and then most of April. And what we've sort of developed into is having two constituencies: our team that are currently working and our team who are waiting to come back. Initially, I email communicated with the management teams once a week, and with the hourly teams once every 2 weeks. As we've sort of realized these two constituencies, the people who are working have sort of fallen into our regular and old routine, and Gonzo's communication is really I think one of its strongest features of our culture. We have weekly dashboards where every direct report has a meeting with their manager. So, and that includes my direct reports, so people are well informed. Our in-restaurant management teams have a management meeting every week. Our in-restaurant teams have 2 daily pre-shifts, and so much of our communication has really flowed through our normal culture. And then we've used email to stay in touch with our hourly teams, but our GMs are really very closely aligned and very connected. So there's ongoing communication. And then we've done things with all of our team to keep them closely aligned with us. We've provided grocery boxes for furloughed team members, actually 3 times. We provided gift cards to a number of concepts. We're part of the Carp Riley private equity family, so in partnership with some of the other restaurants inside of Carp Riley, we were able to provide every team member with 4 $25 gift cards. And so we've had these opportunities where either people are coming in to get something, or we're sending something where there's additional touch points.
Great.
I'm a McDonald's franchisee. My son and I own 13 restaurants in Ventura and LA counties. Being in 2 different counties, I think is interesting. We learn how the different health departments work. Both of them have some strength. So we try to gather whatever they tell us and communicate to our teams. But just like Javier and Jay were talking about, we need frequent communications. So we have shift huddles where the GM will talk to the 2 different shifts every day and explain to them what we need to look out for. We were learning as time went on also with all these PPEs and what the health department want to implement. For example, one thing we learned after the first couple months was, although we were providing face masks since middle of March, our employees are not used to wearing face masks. So they would throw the face mask away once they get off work, and then they give each other rides and not wearing face masks. Mm-hmm. So things like that, we would immediately communicate to our people and say, hey, we need to do some additional work with this PPE to make sure that not only you're protected at work, but you're protected after work. We also have bi-weekly newsletters. We attach these newsletters to their paychecks with everything we've learned on how to better protect ourselves. We also tell our employees what we have implemented based on what health department wants, what the McDonald's system wants, CDC recommendations and so forth. So we can cover everybody, because there was some conflicting information that was coming out. So I think constant communication has been the key and will be the key as we go on.
Yep. No, and I mean, you raise a good point with dealing with different counties. And, you know, I've dealt with a lot of clients with operations in many different counties, and it's the guidance we're getting is vastly different between the counties, state level, and then you bring in the federal level. We're seeing conflicts on all of those. So, you know, it's key to stay informed. And, you know, that was another question too for everybody on the panel. You know, what are you guys doing to keep up to date? Are you studying this on your own, attending webinars, other informational items, talking to other operators, and kind of the best practices to stay current? What are you guys doing on that front? I'll throw that out to the group.
I think the answer is yes. All of those things that participating in these kinds of panels has been great, and then being in the audience on these kind of panels has been great. I'm a member of a couple of new work groups with peers in the industry. We have a strategic planning meeting once a week, so all of the directors in my company are gathering up information and sharing. Working with you, Anthony, has been an incredibly informative and helpful thing. I don't think you can rely on any one source. And you touched on it initially. We're getting a lot of guidance. We're not getting a lot of rules. And so we're all being left to interpret that guidance and do the very best we can. And that's really challenging to do as a solo act, that really relying on a whole bunch of great minds and a lot of great leaders is probably the absolute best practice.